Good evening. This is Pastor Jeong Park. I hope that you had a great Thanksgiving, even though I assume that this year's Thanksgiving holiday was very different than any you have had in the past. Our church is going to enter into a new season of Advent starting tomorrow, Sunday. Can you believe it? That we are entering into the Christmas season already? I hope that your mind is catching up with this fast pace of change. To be honest with you, I'm not fully ready for the change of season yet. A couple of days ago, when I went out into the backyard of my house, I paused for a moment and became sentimental while looking at a Japanese maple tree. Back on March 16, when we started on the shelter in place order, I started that Saturday's reflection by looking at one of the young and green leaves on this maple tree. But now, the leaves have turned red and are starting to fall to the ground. Yesterday, while I was taking a walk around my neighborhood with my young sons as part of our pandemic evening routine, I realized that they had gotten taller. Their pants were much shorter on them as I looked at them from behind. I often think life runs its own course, no matter what feelings we carry in this present moment, no matter if we are stuck in the past. But just one spiritual lesson that we should remember for sure is that we are called to live in the present moment, neither in the past or nor in the future. I want to share Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1 through 5 from the Common English Bible. It says, "There's a season for everything, and a time for every matter under the heavens, a time for giving birth, and a time for dying, a time for planting, and a time for uprooting what was planted, a time for killing, and a time for healing, a time for tearing down, and a time for building up, a time for crying, and a time for laughing, a time for mourning, and a time for dancing." The field of psychology suggests some coping skills for when we have to manage a great deal of stress, distress, and grief. One of these skills is to be aware of ourselves. For example, there are three types of self within us as we react to threats of reality challenges. These are overwhelmed self, the survival self, and the capable self. Each type of self has a function that deals with and reacts to stress as a self-defense mechanism. When the pandemic hit us, some of us were overwhelmed and couldn't get ourselves out of the ditch. This was the overwhelmed self. And we tried to handle it and manage it in our own way, which was the survivor self. The capable self symbolized a type of partner or coach that is ourselves and within us that helps us navigate and take a courageous step forward instead of being stuck in the stress or struggling to survive in the present. As we continue to live in and with the pandemic challenges, it is wise to discern what to do to accept reality and acknowledge it and have the courage to move forward. Spiritually speaking, discern a time to let go of the past and not to be too anxious about the future, but be well grounded in the gift of the present. Can you discern the time for everything? Friends, I hope and pray that for you to take heart and be bold and courageous so you can move forward. There's a season for everything. Everything changes. Eventually, I believe that this time and this pandemic season shall pass. Indeed, we need to be wiser and more mature and spiritual to learn all of this difficult lesson, don't we? Life is full of lessons for our ongoing learning and growing. May God bless you and take care of you. May God be kind and gracious to you. May God look on you with favor and give you peace. Amen.